On May 4th, 2023, a large object of unknown size and origin was seen hurtling toward the Hawaiian coast at a speed of approximately 340 miles per hour. It crashed into the Pacific Ocean, and Navy response vessels were ordered to quarantine the area immediately. Official news reports stated that the object was a small radioactive container dropped from the International Space Station. It had been scheduled for a routine disposal 2 weeks later near Point Nemo, but a computer error caused it to be dropped earlier, and thus inconvenienced the local freighters and fishermen. But when have the government ever told the public the complete truth? If I hadn't been there that day, I think I would have accepted this story. I was on holiday to visit my family in Waipahu, and my uncle surprised all of us with a fishing trip at the last minute. I have never been a fan of sailing, even though these waters were literally my backyard for my entire childhood. My gaze has always been toward the sky, the ocean of stars that we can see on a clear night. Honestly, that was the only thing that excited me about this trip. The downside was being stuck in a dinghy alongside my father, brother and uncle for nearly 5 hours just to experience a nightmare. Of course, at the time, none of us knew that would happen. How could we? When we should all have been looking at the heavens, my attention was on telling my father that I wasn't wasting his good money having to repeat a semester of college. Astrophysics is not exactly an easy field to get into. My university professor back in Washington is tough as nails and wants all of his students to rival the alumni that come out of Harvard and MIT. I think I told him. It wasn't entirely a lie. I didn't want to reveal the real reason I had slacked off was because of meeting my girlfriend Rose. I didn't need to have my ear talked off about that. Father seemed satisfied with my answer, slapping the back of my brother's head and telling him that he needed to make a name for himself too. I did not know that would be the last thing he would ever say. And I wish I hadn't laughed at my brother's expense. Above our heads, we heard what sounded like an explosion. And looking up, it appeared that something the size of a small plane had ripped the sky apart. All of us stopped what we were doing and watched as the ball of fire spread across the clouds and moved towards the open ocean. I didn't know the speed at the time, but it was, as my uncle would say, booking it. "We need to move away," my father shouted as we tried to raise the sail, but the velocity of the approaching object was causing the wind to suck toward it. I'm honestly not sure it would have mattered much, given what happened next. As it entered the atmosphere, it made a deafening noise that split my eardrums. And then, before I knew what was happening, it smashed into the water about 2 miles from our yacht. The waves crashed up, and I scrambled to grab my life jacket as Dad lost control of the wheel. The water had to be at least a mile high, and I heard my brother scream as our small ship was toppled by the unexpected explosion. My body flew up into the air, and I reached a hand out to grab the sail as the entire thing fell upside down onto the ocean, all my perception being deafened by the resounding void of the water. Under the pressure of the ocean, I heard 2 further explosions from the object, causing ripples to shudder through the surrounding area as I swam to the surface. Fire and smoke was already spiraling from the object, and it was leaking fuel across the water toward our location. A final explosion ignited the gasoline and put our tiny ship ablaze. I shouted for my father and my brother, grabbing a hold of the side of the yacht and climbing on the slippery underbelly that now serves as a raft. From this angle, I could see that the object resembled some kind of escape pod. It was cylindrical and silver, and looked like it had been through hell to reach Earth. My brother came to the surface first, gasping for breath as I jumped out and helped him to the boat. He was desperately trying to find our father, but I knew we couldn't stay on the burning yacht long as the fire surrounded us. Then, we heard helicopters, and I told my brother to stay on the boat as I swam to the object. Perhaps Dad had gone to that side of the disaster, hoping it would stabilize. I ducked under the fire and swam with what little energy I had left to the escape pod, resurfacing in time to hear the approaching helicopters activate their searchlights. The hatch to the pod was open, I realized. And before I could see what was inside, a metallic glove muffled my mouth and yanked me within. I was soon face to face with an astronaut in a claustrophobic shell. They gestured for me to remain silent as the helicopters started using their intercoms for a search. I peeked out to see my brother waving to them for help. My uncle had managed to board the ship safely, and they were standing atop the underbelly of his yacht, shouting to the black helicopter. In response, I saw an armored soldier aim a sniper rifle at my family and put a bullet into their skulls. If the astronaut had not been covering my mouth, I would have screamed. As the helicopter moved closer, I realized the same fate could befall me. But before I had time to even think about my mortality, the astronaut pushed me into the bottom part of his pod and passed me a name tag that had been velcroed on his suit. He passed out alongside me afterward. United States astronaut Richter Belshon. Before I could ask another question, the roof above us sealed the pod and activated some kind of escape system that separated us from the top half. I watched as I was jettisoned into the dark ocean, and I then took off the helmet of the astronaut. He was in his late 20s, American, and looked like he had just barely made it to the surface. I knew that he had just saved my life, and his quick, desperate attempt to provide me information about himself was a cry for help. As we traveled to the shore, I decided to help him out of his suit, reasoning that whoever was searching for him would know what to look for and kill us. When we settled on an empty shore, I pulled him from the pod and waved a passerby down to call 911. Despite the fact that this man has changed my life forever, I couldn't imagine ignoring the mystery surrounding this strange event and leaving him there. "I'll find you again," I swore as I saw an ambulance in the distance and made myself scarce before they asked me too many questions. I kept the name tag hidden in my pocket and repeated my story to family when I was reunited. That I didn't know anything about the crash or how I had even wound up on the beach. Thankfully, the Coast Guard was so busy with other issues that day that I was not a priority, and they never checked on me. I kept my head down the next few days, but also kept checking listings at nearby hospitals for any record of an unidentified American man. My aunt is an on-call nurse for several around this area, and unbeknownst to her, she always forgets to log out from her work email at home, so it didn't take long to figure out where the astronaut had been taken. Despite the fact that I had only lost my family a few days prior, I felt a sense of impending doom growing surrounding this man and knew I needed to contact him quickly. I finally got a hit near East Honolulu and got into my car and drove to the small therapy center. A John Doe had been registered with them about the same time as our small boat sank. Getting there was the easy part, and I went at a time when staff was light, so going into his room didn't stir any prying eyes as far as I was aware. Seeing him again, hooked up to machines and just struggling to stay alive, I felt pity and anger all at once. I lost everything because of him, but I needed to know why. I placed a chair against the door to prevent us from being interrupted, and then flipped the lights on to wake him up. The astronaut's eyes flickered in panic and focused on me. You're... My name is Dane, and you're Richter, is that correct? I said, stepping closer to get a good look at his face. Yes, I suppose I have you to thank for my current circumstances? The astronaut asked. Where is my equipment? I ditched your suit in the ocean, I told him, crossing my arms and commenting. I went through a lot of trouble to make sure those people in the special ops didn't hunt you down like they did my uncle and brother. You must have the spirit of a real warrior to be able to stand up and fight for a stranger, he commented as he looked down at his injuries. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, And right now, I'm wondering if I'm repeating the same mistake. Tell me one good reason why I shouldn't alert the nurse as to who you are, I said. Did you find the flash drive? He muttered as he sat up and winced in pain. What? You didn't mention anything about a flash drive. Don't try to change the subject. No, listen, I'm not. That drive is the key to everything that they've been working on. It must be leaked to the public immediately. And where exactly is it? I asked. I thought I gave it to you. In the heat of the moment, I must have dropped it in the pot or on the beach. He admitted as he told me to pass my cell phone. I was a tad reluctant to comply with these ramblings, but curiosity won out, and I unlocked it and handed it over. He narrowed his eyes and did a few Google searches, typing rapidly as he looked up news articles about the incident. They're already covering up my crash. It won't be long before they find me, he realized as he passed it back to me and showed me a webpage of a storage center in the downtown Honolulu area. During my time on the space station, I transferred several backups of my files to that location. It might not be as much of a linchpin as the flash drive, but it's something. Hold on, you aren't making sense, Mr. Belshon. You were on the International Space Station, and you're on a run from who exactly? Military? It was hard to determine if he was spotting nonsense, or was on the cusp of something revelatory. But I was trying my best to keep up with his train of thoughts. It's like you said, special ops. This wasn't from the ISS. People on Earth think that's the only thing floating up there. But they're wrong. We've had several hidden projects in the works since the turn of the millennium. This was called Zagreus. Not that it matters much. Listen, you can still try to stop what they are doing if you get to that storage unit, he explained. Just then, I heard a nurse tap on the door, and I realized I was out of time. I slid the phone into my pocket and gave him an icy glare. I can't make any promises. I'll check out your lead. But if you're just running me in circles, I will be the first to rat you out, I warned. Richter shook his head, trying to remain conscious. Won't matter. They'll find me soon enough. My days are numbered. Go. Save what is left of your family if you can. Leave this world. The nurse shook the door handle, and I moved the chair out of the way, giving an apologetic lopsided smile as they entered. Who are you? They asked accusingly, as they saw the astronauts' levels were spiking, probably stress-induced from our short, chaotic conversation. I thought I knew him, I lied as I hurried out of the hospital room and down the hallway. Thankfully, the nurse did not follow. My heart was still pounding in my head as I made it to the parking garage and finally looked at the coordinates for the storage unit. Not like I have anything else to do, I muttered with a deep sigh as I got into my car and drove to the location. On the way, I used my car's Siri to search for Zagreus. The robotic voice gave me a rundown of the ancient name.
Zagreus, here's what I found on Google, commonly referred to as the alter ego of the Greek god Hades, or possibly the reborn son of Zeus and Persephone. Zeus intended him to be his successor, but a jealous Hera summoned the Titans to tear Zagreus limb from limb. Also identified as connecting to the Egyptian deity Osiris.
Unfortunately for me, all of that information brought me no closer to determining what the astronaut had been a part of. Typical government code names. Bunch of nonsense, I thought, as I parked my car at the storage unit. When I went to find the keys, I lied and gave them the astronaut's name. They were willing to offer me access to the unit if I paid the back fees, which were apparently near $300. Shouldn't it have gone to default? I asked in shock. The account was still in good standing because it paid for other services in the area, so we didn't clean out the unit. Can you pay or what? The man behind the counter asked. I made a mental note that Belshon owed me and walked toward the unit he had directed me to find. Inside, I wasn't too surprised to find a small storehouse of motherboards and computer equipment, all of which was powered by a small generator in the back corner. Wasting no time, I started searching the active computer for anything that might clue me in on Belshun and his research. There wasn't much at first. A few video diaries of him and his teammates building some kind of artificial environment in space, and then a few other clips of monitoring the moon's surface. I didn't really know for sure what I was supposed to be looking for. Then, I saw a video that made me pause, and my jaw drop. I played it back slowly, making sure I wasn't seeing things. The clip said it was documented during April, during a hybrid solar eclipse. Something massive beneath the surface of the moon had caused a quake to destroy at least what looked like a small city. Then, the next clip showed the quake had even greater devastation, and it had a voice narration from Belshun.
It's finally happening. We've been studying this thing for months now, and I know that the others are trying to deny the reality of what we are seeing. But the proof is undeniable. Something beneath the surface of our moon is alive and bursting from the ground. I'm sending the readings in a separate file as proof of its biological makeup and mass.
I find that file next, my eyes widening as his estimation had calculated the life form to be approximately the size of Texas, or perhaps a little bigger. Almost the entire half circumference of the moon, I realized as I recalled my studies. How was that even possible? As I read the files on the project that Belshun had sent, my worry and dread grew. He had been assigned to the project because of his military background, and told that the main focus would be on architecture and collaboration with United Nations agencies towards Mars colonization. Yet, every file I was finding showed that Belshun was focused instead on procuring samples of this life form from the dark side of the moon. Early in February, he predicted that the life form was coming out of a hibernation due to their interference.
Within a year, we may lose our moon.
His voice chillingly prophesied. I looked back toward the full moon above me, wondering if that was already coming true. There were still holes in the story that frightened me, including why Belshun had decided to bail and flee here to Earth. Had the project taken a dark turn? And was our planet in danger from this monstrous lunar beast? I stepped out of the storage unit and checked my phone. It was late. My aunt had contacted me 3 times, but I couldn't even think about going home right now. I needed answers. Belshun was my only source, so I went back to the hospital as quickly as I could. I don't really know if I was being as subtle as I could be. Because of the strange videos I had seen on Belshun's computers, I was honestly trying not to freak out. I have been studying the stars and have been in love with astronomy since I was a young boy. To imagine that our moon could house such a massive creature hidden away all this time, it sounded impossible. Belshun would have the truth, I thought as I reached the right floor. Just as the elevator doors opened though, I stopped dead in my tracks to see 2 men dressed like they were federal agents talking to a nurse. I tried to make myself discreet and went over to a nearby waiting room, pretending to read a magazine until they left. I wished I had been close enough to hear their conversation, but another part of me was glad I hadn't. These agents could easily be the same people that killed my family. I realized as I walked over to the nurse's desk and casually asked about the John Doe patient. The nurse I had met earlier seemed surprised I had returned. I'm sorry, I didn't have a way to reach his family. He passed away a short time ago. I felt my palms becoming sweaty as I asked her to repeat that. How did he die? I muttered. We haven't got the official report in yet, sir. And unless you can provide some sort of proof that you are related, it's confidential. A second nurse said. This one seemed suspicious of my arrival. And I guess the federal agents had warned the staff to keep an eye out for anyone making inquiries. I thanked them both and scurried back to a nearby restroom, locking myself in a stall. I began to vomit as I realized that this also meant those men were aware that someone was involved in rescuing the astronaut. Before I could even fathom the fact that they were searching for me, I heard the restroom door creak open and someone bang on the stall. "Occupied," I said weakly as I threw up again. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way," the stranger warned, and immediately my whole body went stiff. I turned to look at the shoes under the stall door and realized it was one of the federal agents. "I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered. "We've already pulled security footage and confirmed you visited former Lieutenant Belchin's room about 3 hours ago. It would be in your best interest to reveal the nature of your relationship with him now, before things get ugly," a second voice said. They were guarding the door too, I realized. I slid the restroom door open and looked the federal agent in the eye, trying my best to think on my feet. "This is a public space. If you lay a hand on me, I'll scream bloody murder and dropkick you," I warned. The first man actually stifled a laugh. "All we want is the flash drive. Cooperate and we'll let you go," he told me. Before I could sputter another reply, they kicked me to the floor and gruffly checked my pockets. The only thing on me was my phone, which made me realize I had stupidly forgotten to delete the info about the storage unit. They forced my thumb against the lock and then pushed me back into the restroom. "This storage unit. Did you go there?" the second man asked. I didn't know what to say, so I lied. "Belchin told me to make backup files and distribute them across the web to contacts he has around the world. He said he was going to expose you." Thankfully, they believed me, but I wasn't sure if it was going to help my chances of surviving this encounter. "If you're smart, you are going to keep whatever you found to yourself. Is that understood?" the second man said, briefly showing a gun hidden under his coat. "There's no mention of a flash drive. Shit," the first man mumbled. They pushed me against the wall. "You're going to help us find it. Otherwise, you will wind up just like that traitor," the first man demanded. A passerby stumbled into the restroom, interrupting their interrogation, and the federal agents were forced to let me go. Even as I slipped into the elevator though, I could feel their prying eyes watching my every move. There's a target on my back now, because they think I know something, and the only reason they've kept me alive is to find this flash drive, I realized as I made it home. My aunt chewed me out and nearly burst into tears because she was so worried. I wanted to confide in her, but this was too big of a secret to burden her with. I knew it wouldn't take them long to realize I had lied about distributing the info from Belchin's computer. Once they know I'm the last remaining person, I won't be alive much longer. My only card I could play was to find that flash drive and use it as leverage. I sat down in my room looking at a picture of my brother and dad, smiling at his graduation. "I wish you were here to help me figure this out," I whispered, trying to recall what Belchin had told me. He claimed he had given it to me already, I realized. Just then, my aunt knocked on my door and brought in a basket of laundry. "Dane, I'm sorry for lashing out at you. These past few days, they have been so hard. We have got to stick together," she said, as I saw the astronaut's name tag sticking out of my pants pocket, near the middle of the basket. I suddenly knew where the drive was. I gave her a hug and offered to sort the clothes, using it as an excuse to grab the tag. As I took it out of the clothes, I ripped it apart. Within the seams of the fabric, I saw the tiny USB drive and thanked my lucky stars. Quickly, I connected it to my laptop to see what the final piece of the puzzle was. I was expecting another video from Belchin, but this one was from some other elite player in this scheme. A NATO commander, I assumed, from the rank on his collar.
The following details relate to Project Zagreus and to the Karen transfer team. As many of you know, for the past several years, our international team of scientists has become aware of a living presence on the dark side of the moon. This beast, which the project was named after, will likely awaken by the fall of 2024, if not by spring of 2025. Upon hatching from the shell of the lunar surface, it will destroy approximately half of the celestial satellite.
A video showed projections of the impact on the Earth's surface, and I realized that according to their predictions, our world would be decimated.
This will be an extinction-level event to rival that of the dinosaurs. As a result, we have focused all our energy on the Karen transfer. Those involved in the project will ensure that the list of candidates for colonization are ready at the latest by summer of 2023.
Next, Belgian provided a printout of that mentioned list. I didn't have time to review all of it, but immediately a few of the names stuck out as prominent politicians and billionaires. It didn't take me long to realize that this list was only for the elite and upper class of our planet. The video ended by explaining that the operation was to be made completely classified to the general public.
We will create whistleblowers for distraction, discussing alien threats to keep attention in the opposite direction,
the commander explained. The overwhelming dread I had felt came crashing down on me. They're going to let the rest of us die here on this planet, while they escape to the stars. This is what their master plan is, and what Belgian was murdered for. He must have stumbled on the transfer list and realized it means dooming more than 90% of Earth's population. I took a long look in the mirror and decided what to do next. The next morning, I was at the nearest federal building, requesting an audience with anyone about Belgian. I told him I had critical information that needed to be handed. I was shuffled into a small room that reminded me of the hospital stall and grilled with questioning. I had one stipulation for handing over the flash drive. I know about the transfer. I need signed documents by whoever the hell is in charge that my family will be on that ship, I told him. I made sure to confirm that I had not sent the drive to anyone else, but also to make it clear I had a contingency in place should they try to decide and silence me like they did Belgian. Finally, after hours of this same conversation going round and round, they relented and agreed to my terms. You're a smart man. Your family will consider you their savior, one commander said to me. I honestly don't care, and I don't want them to know about any of this, I admitted. I repeated that I would not hand over any evidence until my family was secure. So, that is what happened. Over the next few months, we've acclimated to life off of Earth in this new space program. And I have faithfully kept my mouth quiet about Belgian and the moon. I know that anyone hearing this now will likely view me as a scum because I chose to save myself and those I love, rather than expose the plans of this operation. But I am not a hero like Richter was. I can see a certain logic to their argument and plan. There will not be enough time to save all of mankind. Even so, I have grown sick of leading this lie, and I cannot forgive them for what they did to my brother and dad. So, now that I've managed to gain their trust, I twist the knife and make them bleed. This station gives me a chance to do what I threatened months ago, and I distribute this proof across the dark web to anyone who will hear it. I am not sure if anyone will believe it or not. I am uncertain if I am too late. I can see where the creature is slowly emerging from the moon. It is a terrifying sight to behold. Perhaps Belgian was too late all along. Perhaps there is nothing either of us can do except watch as the world burns and the sky falls.